Hello and welcome to RW Property. In today's video I'll be explaining the differences between a leasehold and a freehold property, and I'll touch on some positives and negatives of both. In the UK, property ownership is defined by the tenureship you have. Tenureship meaning how you own something. There are two main types of tenure in the UK. There's freehold and there's leasehold. Freehold means the outright ownership of the property or the building and the land that the building or the property sits on. With freehold properties, there is no time limit on the period of ownership, therefore you pretty much own it forever, or until at least you sell it or decide to gift it to someone else or transfer it in some sort of way. If you own a freehold property, you are known as the freeholder. Leasehold refers to the right to occupy a specified space within a building. In property, this is known as the demise, and you own that for a period of time. But the building, the shell of the building, and the land that the building sits on is owned by the freeholder. If you own a leasehold property, you are known as the leaseholder. Most houses in the UK are freehold. Be always very careful to check when buying a property so that you don't think you're buying a freehold and it turns out being a leasehold. On the other hand, most flats and maisonettes and apartments in the UK are leasehold. Leases may vary from 99 years all the way up to 999 years. The most common ones are 99 years, 125 years, sometimes you might get 250 years and 999 years. Occasionally you might come across the terms share a freehold or common hold. They do refer to flats, however they're a bit more complicated, and I'll explain those in a video further down the line. Now, as you can imagine, there are of course differences between leasehold properties and freehold properties, which I'll go through now. The first main difference between leasehold and freehold is control. With freehold properties, you have full control over what you do with it. If you want to knock down a wall to open up the kitchen and living room, you can do it. If you want to go outside and build a swimming pool in your back garden, you can do that too. If you want to change the windows and doors to bright, colourful colours, you can do that. And if you want to leave your house in an absolute state, then you can do that too. My point is that with a freehold property, you can almost do almost anything you want with it without the need for permission from a higher power, unless of course you want to build an extension or go up into your loft or a side extension. Then of course you need planning permission from your local council. With leasehold properties, your rights are governed by the lease. The lease is a form of contract which will state what you can and can't do, your responsibilities, your building owner's responsibilities, and what you might have to pay to help maintain the building, amongst other things. Usually if you want to change anything in your flat, you will usually have to ask your freeholder for permission in writing, otherwise you could be penalised. The second difference is asset value. With freehold properties, because there is no time limit on ownership, the property value isn't affected negatively by time. Leaseholds, on the other hand, are time dependent. For example, you may have a lease of 99 years from the year 2001. Now in 2020, that means that 19 years would have passed, which means you have 80 years remaining on your lease. What that means is that in 80 years time, when your rights expire, the owner of the building or the freeholder will have the right to take that property back. It is no longer yours, it becomes the freeholder's. Now 80 years is also a magic number within leasehold properties specifically, and that's because once a lease drops to 80 years or below, the property value decreases exponentially. Now there is certain legislation that allows you to extend your lease, however that part of property is quite complicated, so I'll explain that in a different video when I have some more time with you. The third difference is the obligation to pay service charge and ground rent. One of the biggest downsides to leasehold properties is that you have the obligation to pay ground rent and service charge. Those of you who own a flat will know exactly what I'm talking about. A ground rent is a yearly sum you pay to the freeholder for the fact that you're occupying space in a building that is on their land. A service charge is a yearly or monthly payment that goes towards the contribution of the maintenance of the building. That doesn't sound too bad, right? But as a leaseholder, you have no say as to where the money goes to. The freeholder can say that the roof needs changing, or the windows and doors need changing, and he will demand money from everyone in the building, and then you have to pay it because you're obliged by your lease. As a freeholder, of course, you have the option of maintaining your building however you like, whenever you like. The fourth difference is purchase price. Freehold properties are, of course, more expensive as they tend to be houses. All the points I mentioned earlier kind of add up and play a part as to why leasehold properties such as flats tend to be cheaper than freehold properties, and that's usually down to the main element, which is control. Now, the unfortunate reality for a lot of young people in the UK is that they will probably not be able to buy a house as their first property, so therefore they will have to go for a flat, which is not a bad thing because it's a lot cheaper than buying a house. However, you must always be aware that there are other things involved when buying a flat. Now, that pretty much sums up the differences between a freehold and a leasehold property. If you like the video, like the video. And if you had any questions about freehold or leasehold properties, put them down in the comments and I'll get back to all of you with my answers. Thank you for watching and see you next time.